At 5:42 a.m. local time, the calm of the Red Sea shattered. 18 nautical miles northeast of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a flash on the horizon signaled what no one believed possible. A swarm of Houthi-launched loitering munitions and anti-ship ballistic missiles descending in unison upon the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower CVN-69. This was no ordinary ship. This was a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, a nuclear-powered 100,000-ton floating city, long considered a symbol of unmatched U.S. naval power. Explosions rippled across the Eisenhower's flight deck, sending plumes of smoke and debris skyward. The carrier's defensive systems, Aegis radar, Phalanx CIWS, and SM-2 interceptors, lit the morning sky with desperate fire. Yet one drone, guided with uncanny precision, slammed into the port side just above the waterline. For a moment, time froze. How did a militia from Yemen, armed with improvised but highly coordinated weapons, pierce one of the most sophisticated naval defenses on Earth? This was more than metal meeting fire. It was a direct strike at the psychological heart of U.S. maritime dominance, a $13 billion symbol now wounded in one of the world's most vital shipping lanes. The audacity alone, a non-state militant group crippling America's premier warship, sent shockwaves through every capital from Washington to Beijing. But this is not just about one attack. This is a warning shot to the world, a sign of shifting power in modern warfare, where cheap precision weapons can challenge billion-dollar platforms and fragile supply chains hang by a thread. Stay with us until the end. You'll see how the moment could redefine naval warfare and why no ocean is safe anymore. What began as another routine patrol in the Red Sea turned into a scenario ripped from wargaming simulations. At 5:40 a.m., the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower and its escorting vessels, destroyers USS Gravely, DDG-107, and USS Mason, DDG-87, were conducting standard security operations to ensure safe passage for commercial shipping. Within 2 minutes, everything changed. The first radar warning came from an E-2D Advanced Hawkeye orbiting overhead, an unidentified cluster of fast-moving objects approaching from the Yemeni coastline. Analysts initially thought it was another harassment attempt, the kind U.S. warships had routinely faced, from rebel speedboats or unsophisticated drones, but this time was different. A coordinated triple-layer attack unfolded, 16 Shahd-type suicide drones flying low and fast, designed to saturate close-in weapon systems, 3 anti-ship ballistic missiles, ASBM, believed to be Iranian College Fars derivatives, streaking in at Mach 3, targeting the Eisenhower's superstructure. 2 uncrewed surface vessels, USVs, packed with explosives, approaching from opposite vectors below radar coverage. For 90 seconds, the Eisenhower's defensive suite engaged at full capacity. Phalanx CIWS guns spun at 4,500 rounds per minute, shredding multiple drones mid-air, while SM-2 interceptors launched from the USS Mason destroyed 1 ASBM. But one ballistic missile and a drone boat hybrid slipped through. The missile slammed near the flight deck aft, igniting parked FA-18 Super Hornets, while the drone boat detonated against the port hull, causing internal flooding in one engine room. Though automated fire suppression systems quickly contained the flames, the symbolism was devastating. A U.S. carrier, the ultimate icon of maritime power, visibly scarred by a militia's weapons of war. Within minutes, global shipping monitors flashed red, oil prices spiked 5%, and headlines screamed, "Houthi strike wounds USS Eisenhower." The Eisenhower's bridge crew reacted instantly. General quarters alarms wailed across the 1,000-foot vessel, and sailors rushed to battle stations as the ship's massive hull listed slightly from the portside blast. Below decks, damage control teams fought flooding in the engine room, sealing bulkheads to prevent a catastrophic breach. Above decks, Fire suppression crews doused burning Fa-18 Super Hornets, while ordnance handlers pushed live munitions away from spreading flames. On the perimeter, USS Gravely DDG-107 assumed immediate command of area defense, launching 4 Tomahawk cruise missiles at coordinates believed to house Houthi mobile launchers in northern Yemen. Simultaneously, USS Mason DDG-87 activated its SPY-1 radar and fired SM-6 interceptors to neutralize any lingering airborne threats. From the Eisenhower's deck, despite a damaged catapult, 2 Fa-18E Super Hornets roared into the sky, providing overwatch for the carrier group. An MQ-9 Reaper drone, diverted from a CENTCOM surveillance mission, swept the Yemeni coastline, locating what appeared to be a concealed missile battery hidden inside a dry riverbed. By 6:05 a.m., retaliatory Tomahawks hit their marks, producing fireballs visible from 30 miles away. Intelligence analysts would later confirm that 2 missile launch trucks were destroyed, crippling Houthis' ability to launch further ASBMs that day. Yet the victory felt hollow. The Eisenhower, America's floating fortress, was wounded, forcing immediate diversion to a secure operating area for temporary repairs. Sailors who had just hours earlier been performing routine patrols now stood on a ship marked by fire, smoke, and the smell of scorched aviation fuel. The message was unmistakable. The U.S. Navy could still strike back hard, but it was no longer untouchable. By 8 a.m. Washington, D.C. time, the White House Situation Room was at full alert. President and the National Security Council convened an emergency session, joined by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and senior naval commanders. The question on everyone's mind: how could a regional militia breach the layered defenses of one of America's most powerful carriers? At the Pentagon, Admiral Samuel Paparo, commander of U.S. Pacific Fleet, outlined the initial assessment of Houthi forces had employed a multi-domain saturation strike, a combination of drones, anti-ship ballistic missiles, and explosive uncrewed surface vessels. The attack was algorithmically coordinated, likely using open-source satellite imagery and AI-driven route prediction. GPS spoofing and electronic jamming delayed missile defense intercepts by a critical 1.2 seconds, enough to overwhelm Aegis radar response. Politically, the shockwaves were immediate. Israel called for a joint naval task force, citing parallels with attacks on its own shipping routes. Iran officially denied involvement, but issued a provocative statement praising the strike as a victory for oppressed peoples. Russia and China urged restraint while quietly analyzing the tactics, aware that similar methods could be used in other contested waterways. Meanwhile, Wall Street reacted. Defense contractors' stocks dipped temporarily, raising uncomfortable questions about the vulnerability of billion-dollar warships in an era of low-cost precision weapons. For the Pentagon, this was more than an isolated incident. It was a strategic wake-up call. The Eisenhower attack was compared to the USS Cole bombing, 2000, but amplified by advanced weaponry and real-time media coverage. America's invincibility narrative had cracked, and the world was watching. By 48 hours after the attack, U.S. Central Command launched Operation Iron Resolve, a coordinated retaliation designed to send an unmistakable message. The U.S. Navy had been hit, but it would not hesitate to strike back harder. From Diego Garcia, 2 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers flew undetected into Yemeni airspace, delivering GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators onto hardened missile bunkers near Saada and Hajjah, sites identified as Houthi anti-ship ballistic missile storage. In parallel, USS Gravely and USS Mason fired another wave of Tomahawk cruise missiles, striking radar installations and drone assembly facilities. Cyber Command executed a parallel digital strike, deploying malware that crippled Houthi drone control networks, effectively grounding multiple loitering munitions before they could be launched again. Special Operations Forces intercepted 2 uncrewed surface vessels in transit, seizing valuable intelligence on explosive payload designs. The impact was immediate. 4 key missile depots destroyed. 3 high-value commanders eliminated in precision strikes. Houthi radar coverage degraded by 70%, but collateral damage was unavoidable. Reports emerged of civilian casualties in Sana'a, triggering criticism from humanitarian groups and a predictable wave of propaganda from Iran-backed media outlets. The Houthis, undeterred, issued a statement. Every U.S. warship remains a legitimate target until Gaza is free. Global markets jolted. Oil futures spiked 7%, and Red Sea shipping insurance premiums jumped 35% overnight. Yet for Washington, the primary objective was clear: restore deterrence and demonstrate that American carriers, even when damaged, still wielded overwhelming reach. The world understood the message: hit America, and the response will shake the ground you stand on. The attack on the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower marked more than an isolated strike. It exposed a paradigm shift in global maritime warfare. For decades, U.S. carrier strike groups symbolized unquestioned naval supremacy, floating fortresses projecting power anywhere on Earth. Yet, in one coordinated assault, a non-state actor armed with low-cost precision weapons cracked that image. Defense analysts drew 3 hard lessons. Non-state actors now wield nation-state firepower. Anti-ship ballistic missiles, once exclusive to countries like China or Iran, are now in the hands of militias. Autonomous and AI-driven warfare changes everything. Cheap drones and uncrewed vessels, guided by open-source satellite imagery and machine learning, can saturate billion-dollar defense systems. Maritime choke points are fragile. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait, like the Strait of Hormuz and South China Sea, could quickly become flashpoints capable of destabilizing global trade. In response, the Pentagon began reviewing its carrier deployment doctrine, more emphasis on distributed lethality. Smaller, faster ships operating in coordinated swarms. Integration of next-generation electronic warfare to counter AI-driven drone swarms. A shift toward hypersonic defensive interceptors and directed energy weapons as future solutions. Politically, the attack triggered NATO consultations on a joint maritime security force, while Japan and South Korea voiced concern that similar tactics could target their shipping lanes. Symbolically, the Eisenhower incident became a warning to every global power. Naval dominance is no longer guaranteed by size or budget. It depends on adaptability. This was America's Pearl Harbor moment of the drone age, forcing military planners to confront an uncomfortable truth. The future battlefield is already here, and it favors those who innovate fastest. The strike on the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower was more than an attack on steel and machinery. It was an assault on a global order built on the premise of American maritime dominance. For decades, carrier strike groups represented deterrence through presence, a guarantee that no regional actor could challenge U.S. naval supremacy. That assumption shattered in just 3 minutes of coordinated firepower launched by a non-state militia. The lesson is unmistakable. In the age of autonomous weapons, AI-driven targeting, and low-cost precision strike systems, even the mightiest fleets are vulnerable. The Red Sea incident is not an anomaly, but a warning of what future conflicts may look like: fast, decentralized, and unpredictable. For global shipping, the message is chilling. If one militia can threaten a $13 billion nuclear-powered carrier, how safe are the cargo vessels feeding the world's economy? This is a moment for reflection and action. Adaptation is no longer optional. It is survival. If you believe the world must face these truths before it's too late, share this story, hit like video, and subscribe for more deep, unfiltered analysis. Because next time, it might not just be one ship. It could be an entire fleet.